Hands behind your back. No. The shout cut through the afternoon like a gunshot. Before Marcus Bennett could fully turn, a hand grabbed his shoulder and slammed him forward. His chest hit the hood of a patrol car. The metal was hot. His breath left him in a sharp burst. "Wait, what?" Marcus said. "What's going on?" A knee pressed into his thigh. Another officer twisted his arms back. The click of handcuffs sounded louder than it should have. People on the sidewalk stopped. Someone gasped. A phone camera came up. "You're being detained," an officer said. Flat. "Certain." "For what?" Marcus asked, his voice already shaking. "I just left the grocery store." "Don't talk," another voice snapped. "You match the description." Marcus's heart began to race. He looked to his left, then right, trying to understand how a normal Tuesday had turned into this. He was still holding a plastic bag. Milk had spilled onto the pavement, spreading under his shoe. An officer pulled his wallet out and flipped it open. "Marcus Bennett," he read. "Address checks out." "That's me," Marcus said quickly. "I live 2 blocks away." "Then this won't be hard," the officer replied. "Hard?" Marcus felt eyes on him. Neighbors. Strangers. Someone whispered his name like they already knew it. His face burned with a mix of fear and shame he didn't recognize. "I didn't do anything," he said. "You've got the wrong person." No one answered. As they pushed him harder against the car, something slipped from his jacket pocket and landed on the ground near the tire. A small card. Bent at the corner. Marcus saw it and his stomach tightened. "Hey," he said. "That fell." "Quiet," an officer warned. The radio crackled. "Suspect is being transported for confirmation," a voice said. "Victim on the way." Marcus swallowed. They weren't asking questions anymore. And if you're taking a moment to listen closely right now, thank you, because what happens next hinges on one small detail no one seems to be looking at. The back door of the patrol car opened. And that's when Marcus realized this was already out of his hands. "Watch your head." The words came too late. Marcus bumped the frame as he was pushed into the back of the patrol car. The door slammed shut, sealing him in. The smell of vinyl and disinfectant filled his nose. His hands throbbed where the cuffs bit into his wrists. Through the window, he saw the card still lying on the pavement. It fluttered slightly in the breeze as people stepped around it. No one picked it up. The car lurched forward. Marcus closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. His mother had taught him that when he was a kid. He tried to remember her voice now, calm and steady, as the city blurred past. They stopped less than a block away. The door opened again. Sunlight poured in. An officer grabbed his arm and pulled him out. A small group had gathered near a convenience store. At the center stood a young woman with a bandage on her hand, her face pale and tight. "That's the victim," someone said. Marcus's chest tightened. "Ma'am," he said gently, "I'm sorry you're hurt, but I don't know you." "I wasn't here." The woman looked at him, eyes searching. She hesitated. I'm not sure," she said. "It happened fast. But he had on a dark jacket." Marcus glanced down at himself. Light gray hoodie. Faded jeans. "That's not what I'm wearing," he said. An officer stepped in front of him. "Clothing can change." The woman shifted her weight. "He also had a scar," she said. "On his cheek, I think." Marcus felt a flicker of hope. "I don't have any scars." An officer tilted Marcus's face toward the light. Studied it. Long enough for the silence to grow uncomfortable. The woman shook her head slowly. I don't know." The officers exchanged looks. "Let's take him in," one said. "We'll sort it out at the station." Marcus's heart sank. "Take me in." Even though she's not sure. "Detainment," the officer corrected. "Not an arrest." They guided him back toward the car. As they passed the curb, Marcus tried one last time. "That card on the ground," he said urgently. "It proves where I was." An officer glanced down, uninterested. "We'll see." The door shut again. And as the car pulled away, Marcus understood something frighteningly clear. No one was really looking for the truth. They were looking for someone to hold. The metal door shut behind Marcus with a sharp click. The room was small, bright, and cold. A table bolted to the floor. 2 chairs. A camera blinking in the corner. Marcus sat with his hands cuffed in front of him now, wrists swollen and red. His heart was still racing, but the silence was worse than the shouting had been. A detective entered, flipping open a folder. "Marcus Bennett," he said. "You were identified near the scene of an assault." "Near isn't the same as there," Marcus replied. "And the woman said she wasn't sure." The detective didn't respond. He slid a photo across the table. Grainy. Blurry. A man running past a storefront. "That's not me," Marcus said immediately. "Why not?" the detective asked. "Different build. Different jacket. And look at the time," Marcus said, leaning forward. "What time is that?" The detective glanced down. 4:18 p.m. Marcus's breath caught. "That's when I was checking out at the grocery store." The detective paused. "Just for a second. That card you ignored," Marcus added, voice steady but tight. "That's my receipt. Time-stamped. 2 blocks away." The detective's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you say that sooner?" "I did," Marcus said. No one listened. The door opened again. A young clerk stepped in holding a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was the bent card Marcus had dropped. "I found this outside," the clerk said. "It wasn't logged." The detective took it, flipped it over, and frowned. The time was clear. The location undeniable. Something shifted in the room. If you're starting to feel like this detail matters, you're right, because someone in that room just noticed what shouldn't have been missed. The detective stood abruptly. "Sit tight," he said, heading for the door. As it closed, Marcus heard raised voices in the hall. And one sentence cut through the noise. "Then we've been holding the wrong man." The door flew open. Marcus looked up just as 2 officers stepped in, their faces tight, movements quick. One of them reached for the cuffs. "Stand up," he said. Marcus's pulse spiked again. "What's happening now?" No one answered. The cuffs came off abruptly, his wrists burning as blood rushed back. For a split second, Marcus thought this was it, that he was finally being let go. Then he saw the look on their faces. "Am I being released?" he asked. "Not yet," the officer said. "We need to move you." "Move him where?" They escorted Marcus down the hallway. Doors passed. Voices stopped when he walked by. He felt every eye on him, the same way he had on the sidewalk earlier, except now there were no phones, just judgment. They stopped outside another room. Inside, through the glass, Marcus saw a man sitting at a table. Same height. Same build. Dark jacket. The other man looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, Marcus felt like he was looking at a distorted version of himself. Same tired eyes. Same nervous posture. But then he saw it, something small but unmistakable. A thin scar running along the man's cheek. The door opened. The detective from earlier stood between them. "Marcus," he said carefully, "this is Ethan Cole." Ethan shifted in his chair, avoiding Marcus's gaze. "The evidence against you doesn't add up," the detective continued. "Your receipt places you elsewhere. The description fits him better." Marcus's knees felt weak. Relief washed over him, slow and heavy. "So, you know it wasn't me," Marcus said. "Yes," the detective replied. A long silence followed. Then Marcus asked the question that had been building since the cuffs first snapped shut. "Then why am I still here?" The detective didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned toward Ethan and said something that made Marcus's chest tighten all over again. "Because he says you were with him earlier." "With him?" Marcus repeated. "I've never seen this man before today." Ethan finally looked up. His eyes were restless, darting between Marcus and the detectives. "I told them," he said quickly, "I didn't know his name. Just that he was there earlier." "That's a lie," Marcus said, his voice steady but tight. "You're lying because you got caught." The room thickened with tension. One detective leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Another flipped through notes, pretending not to listen while listening to everything. "Let's slow this down," the senior detective said. "Ethan, tell us exactly when you say you saw Marcus." Ethan swallowed. "Around 4. Maybe a little after." Marcus shook his head. "At 4, I was still in line at the grocery store. The receipt proves that." The detective held it up. "The receipt shows 4:17 p.m. And the assault happened at 4:19, Marcus said. "You already told me that." Silence. Ethan's foot started bouncing under the table. "Maybe it was earlier," he muttered. "I don't remember the exact time." "That's convenient," Marcus said. The detective's eyes narrowed. "Ethan, the store footage shows Marcus checking out when the assault was reported." "That's not flexible." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then maybe it wasn't him," he said defensively. "I just thought." "You thought what?" the detective pressed. "That blaming him would help me," Ethan snapped. Then he froze. The room went completely still. No one spoke for several seconds. Marcus felt his pulse in his ears. He stared at Ethan, disbelief mixing with anger. "So you tried to pull me down with you?" Ethan didn't answer. The detective closed the file slowly. "That's enough," he said. "Marcus, wait outside." Marcus stood, legs unsteady, and walked toward the door. As it opened, he heard the detective's voice drop. "Ethan, we need to talk about false statements." Marcus stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. Because the evidence didn't just clear him anymore. It exposed someone else. Marcus stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. Through the closed door, voices rose and fell. Sharp. Urgent. A chair scraped loudly across the floor. Someone swore under their breath. Marcus didn't need to hear every word to know what was happening inside. The weight had shifted. An officer approached and handed Marcus a paper cup of water. "Sit tight," he said, avoiding eye contact. Marcus took the cup but didn't drink. His hands were still shaking. Not from fear now, but from the delayed shock of how close everything had come. How easily his life had almost been redirected into something he couldn't control. The detective stepped out minutes later. His tone was different. Quieter. "Marcus," he said, "the statement Ethan gave was false." He admitted it. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Relief washed over him, but it didn't feel clean. It felt heavy. "So I'm free," Marcus said. "Yes," the detective replied. "We're processing your release." Release. The word sounded simple. Final. But Marcus had learned better. They walked him back to the holding room to collect his belongings. His wallet. His phone. The hoodie he hadn't even realized they'd taken. Everything was returned carefully now, with clipped professionalism. Marcus looked up. "That receipt," he said. "If someone hadn't picked it up." The detective nodded once. "It mattered." A pause followed. "You were lucky," the detective added. Marcus met his eyes. "Lucky isn't the word I'd use." The detective didn't disagree. As Marcus signed the release form, he noticed something printed at the bottom. "Detained for questioning. No charges filed. No mention of error. No mention of mistake." And if you're wondering what happens when the system admits the evidence doesn't add up, but refuses to admit fault, stay with this. Because Marcus was about to find out. The front doors slid open, and Marcus stepped back into the sunlight. For a second, he just stood there. Cars moved past. Someone laughed nearby. A man walked his dog. The world looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago, as if nothing had happened. But Marcus felt different. His phone buzzed the moment it connected again. 3 missed calls. 2 text messages. 1 voicemail. All from his sister. "Are you okay? I saw something online." Marcus's stomach tightened. He opened a social media app without thinking. There it was. A shaky video of him pressed against the patrol car. His face clear. His name typed confidently in the caption. "Suspect detained in assault investigation." No update. No correction. Marcus turned back toward the station and walked inside. The same officer sat behind the desk. "You need to fix this," Marcus said, holding up his phone. "That video is everywhere. People think I did this." The officer glanced at the screen, then shrugged. "You were released." "That's not the same thing," Marcus said. "The evidence didn't add up. You know that now." The officer leaned back in his chair. "We don't control what people post." "But you control what you say," Marcus replied. "You never told anyone you were wrong." The officer didn't answer. Marcus felt the frustration rise, sharp and sudden. "My name is attached to this," he said. "My job. My life." The officer finally looked up. "Sir, you're not under arrest. That's all we can do." That was it. Marcus walked back outside slowly, the sun warm on his face, his chest tight. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his manager. "Marcus," the voicemail said carefully, "HR wants to talk tomorrow morning." Marcus lowered the phone. The evidence hadn't added up. Someone had noticed. But the damage was already moving on without him. The email arrived just after midnight. HR meeting. Urgent. Marcus stared at the screen, heart pounding again, the same way it had when the cuffs snapped shut. He imagined the questions. The pauses. The looks that said, "We don't know what to believe." He showed up the next morning anyway. The meeting was short. Too short. HR spoke carefully, using words like review and optics. They said they understood he'd been released. They also said the video was concerning. They asked if there was anything official proving he'd been cleared. Marcus handed them the release paper. Detained for questioning. No charges filed. HR read it twice. Then once more. "This doesn't say the detention was a mistake," the manager said quietly. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. Heavy. Permanent. He walked out an hour later still employed, but on leave. Not fired. Not cleared. Just paused. By the time he got home, the adrenaline was gone. What remained was exhaustion. He sat on the couch, shoes still on, and let the silence fill the room. He thought about the receipt. The Bennett card. The clerk who'd picked it up. One small piece of paper that had stopped his life from breaking completely. His phone buzzed one last time. A news update. The real suspect had been charged. His name printed clearly. Beneath it, a short line. Police say an earlier detention involved another individual who was later released. No name. No apology. Marcus closed the app and leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. The evidence hadn't added up. Someone had noticed. But no one ever said they were wrong. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and share, because some truths only survive when people keep telling them.